This is our family, and this is our van life adventure. Week 6 of van life is here, and it's time for us to start heading back up north to catch our ferry home. Many of our stops en route are purely functional, but we happen to bond the beautiful market town of Geldo. There is art absolutely everywhere, and in the evenings there are beautiful bohemian bars with music playing out of every window. If you're ever making your way across Spain, this is definitely one we recommend. Unfortunately for us, time is short, and before we know it, we're heading to Zaragoza. Welcome to the never-ending hunt for vegan food in Spain. Me dragging them halfway across the city. Found it! Happy Cow strikes again, and we find another fabulous find of vegan food, La Pipara in Zaragoza. Fully fueled, we were ready to explore. Zaragoza is an old city full of Roman ruins. The beautiful old cathedral is mixed with modern art everywhere. It's a great city to explore. There was one problem though. So we are parked up in Zaragoza in the kind of park up designated for motorhomes. It's a great location for exploring the city, and we've had a great day out exploring everything. Riding the trams and going to see the basilica and going to a vegan cafe for lunch. But the problem is with these park-ups is that the location is super noisy. So last night we're next to a sports training ground and by a road. Last night football practice was going on till gone 9 o'clock at the sports camp, and tonight 2 separate bands are having band practice, playing different songs, and Perry's trying to put the boys to bed. Last night it was my turn, tonight it's his. It's really hot, really stuffy, there's not much air, and there's 2 bands playing. So sometimes you have beautiful, peaceful park-ups in nature, but not a ton about. And then you have these fantastic park-ups provided completely free by the cities, but they're noisy. It's 9:10. It's still going. I think it stopped. It's 9:30. Thank God for that. Not long and we were on the road again. We stopped in a small town called Castellón, where Leo was able to practice his Spanish to ask to join in the football with the local boys. It was all going so well, until it wasn't. So we kind of had the worst night that we'd had, and we knew at some point something like this could happen, but I hadn't expected it to happen quite as soon as it happened. And I don't think I expected it to happen in Spain, because it had been so kind of van life friendly and so easy to negotiate that I hadn't thought that something like this would happen there, but it did. So it started off, we kind of gone to bed as normal, and we were parked up in a proper motorhome,
like a compound.
And it was fenced and everything, wasn't it? The gates weren't locked, but it was all fenced off. There was only one other van there, and we were asleep. It was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah. It was quite late.
Yeah. And
well into the night.
And I woke up to the sound of what sounded like teenage boys running towards the van, and then they jumped on the ladder at the back of the van, which is right by the window above our heads.
Because there's a ladder there.
There's a ladder there that
Yeah.
allows us to get onto the roof. And I jumped up and shouted straight away and hit the window. And they jumped straight off and they ran away, but it properly shook me up. And they ran away. And I think at first you kind of think it's just kids being stupid, which I'm sure it was. But unfortunately, we've all done stupid shit. But unfortunately, it didn't end there. They didn't just leave.
Oh, they came back, didn't they?
So quite quickly they came back. To
At this
begin
point,
with,
I was awake.
yeah, so I'd woken Perry up. The boys were still asleep, thankfully. They didn't get woken up. But yeah, they came back quite quickly, or maybe they didn't really leave. They just kind of hung around at a distance and they were shouting stuff. So Perry went out to kind of have a bit of a look around.
Yeah, I was up pretty quick.
Yeah, and they were shouting stuff. I heard them shouting things like good morning and hello. So they were just shouting and being idiots generally.
But after the first time, they didn't let it go.
But that was the big problem. So it started at 2:00 in the morning, but for some reason that just then became a game to them. And so after the shouting they left for a bit, didn't they?
Yeah, or they moved well away from where they were.
They moved away. But
So-
we were both quite on edge then. And we had the back window blind up and were kind of keeping our eyes open. And unfortunately they kept coming back.
We anticipated it, but like hoping they wouldn't, I guess.
I think,
Just
well,
'cause
you
you
know,
don't wanna deal with
you
it.
think at the first time I kind of thought, oh, well, it's probably just kids on the way home and they're just dicking about and they're being silly. But I think when you keep coming back, then
Yeah.
you're
Taking a
kind
nick.
of, then you're kind of pushing it and you're actually kind of being arseholes then, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I ended up sitting there because they were coming down to just outside the compound and stuff, weren't they, where we were staying. Perry went out a couple
I was
of
just
times.
so annoyed, yeah. Pants, in my pants.
Went out
I went out there in my pants.
in
There
his
was no time to get dressed. They
boxer
were coming
short
back.
and his vest. So yeah, at first they were kind of just sort of circling, weren't they?
Yeah.
Coming back and then running around and running away, and then they disappeared for like half an hour, and then they were coming back, and then the final time they came back into the compound, didn't
Yeah,
they?
each time I went out.
And how many of them were there?
8.
And they were teenagers, weren't they? These weren't older.
Yeah, I mean it was dark, but yeah, maybe 16, 17. I was game.
And the thing that was kind of throwing us a bit more was there was obviously a bar nearby or something that had an event on or something that night. So there were other people that were just kind of milling about and sort of leaving the bar. And I think after a little while, you're just really on edge about absolutely everybody that's walking past. But by the final time, Perry was proper wound up. And by this time, it was 4:00 in the morning. This had been going on for 2 hours. I was just sitting there with my phone ready to call the police because I said if they come into the compound, they come near the van again, I'm going to phone the police. So I was just sitting there holding my phone ready to call the police and Googling how to say you're scaring my kids. Thankfully the kids didn't actually wake up at all through the whole thing. They had no idea it was going on. But it did go on for a good 2 hours where they were leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back and leaving.
Every time I
and coming
went out
back.
there, they'd come so far and then would come
run
no further.
away.
There's me and my boxers ready to sort them out, and
You must
It's
have
like-
looked crazy.
they didn't come any closer. So it was like,
Because you must have just
Why?
looked crazy.
just come a bit closer, come a bit closer.
So, final time, Perry went out in your boxers and your vest, didn't you?
Yeah, something like that, because it's middle of the night.
Just yeah, and kind of had a bit of a confrontation with them because they were trying to claim at that point they were trying to get to the water fountain,
Yeah, I
weren't
don't
they?
think so, yeah.
They definitely weren't because they'd been antagonising us for hours. So most of them ran off, but one of them didn't, did he?
One of them stayed. I didn't understand what he was saying, but
I think Perry scared them enough at that point that he then
he was trying to show some face, I think, in front of his mates, but
sort of sheepishly.
They all ran off. They all
ran off and left him on his own, dealing with Perry, looking slightly crazy in his boxer shorts and vest.
Yeah. And after that was it. They never came back.
They didn't come back, but we didn't get much sleep. After that, we were pretty on edge for the rest of the night, and to be honest, it really put a bad spin on things, and it really left me feeling like the next day I was just, you know, it really shook me up, because it really just sort of left me sort of feeling like, what if they had carried on pushing it? Really, what were we going to do?
You don't know, but anyone can push you anywhere. It's just whether you're in the street, in a house, in a park, like... You
know, I thought if something like that was going to happen, it would have been, you know, probably in the UK, because people don't like motorhomes in the UK so much, and, you know, I didn't think it would be like that, but yeah, it was horrible, really.
It was an experience. It
really shook me up, and the next day I felt awful, and we kind of got dressed and we put a brave face on, didn't we? Because we promised to the boys. All I wanted to do the next morning was leave. I just wanted to leave. I was like, I just want to get out of here. I don't want to stay here anymore. But we promised the boys we were going to go to this train museum. That was just a tiny little museum in town. We'd promised them we were going to go to it. So we kind of brushed ourselves off, and we did go, and we got them some pizza kind of in this square. But it was just really weird, because the whole time there's these kids all playing football, and I'm just looking around going, was it you?
Was it you?
Was it you? Who was it? Was it you? Yeah, it was horrible. And I think the chances are it'll probably happen again at some point, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll always be ready.
But thankfully the kids didn't wake up, and the kids still
don't know,
have no idea that it ever happened. Yeah, so it just wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because Spain had been...
That was the only problem we've ever had.
Such a brilliant experience, and it had been so easy and so welcoming and so friendly. It was such a shame that we had that sort of experience to kind of put a damper.
That was our first
towards the end of the trip as well. Everybody had been so great before that.
Our first taste of antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, and people really kind of being really unfriendly. But is what it is.
Yeah. So that was the end of that saga.
At least we had those smiling faces to help us get through the next day.
Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.